And we are live. Okay, so I'm really happy to have Adam here. I'm not going to say much about Adam. You can say, yeah, Adam, say something about yourself, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about.
Let's see. I'm exploring what it takes to be happy,
Cool.
and to
Okay.
try and
What
try and
what
try
would
and
you?
find a happy place.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's what this is about. And do you want to talk about what your relationship with Islam is, like in your own way? Like, by the way, I'm not really. I'm targeting Westerners, so you don't have to worry about, or quite frankly, stupid. The large majority of stupid Muslims who don't even think for themselves. Like, forget them. I'm talking to. I'm actually made a New Year's resolution to have less viewers and focus on the people who actually want to learn. Like in the last few years, I got loads of views, but lots of stupid comments. Yeah, like people who don't want to use their
Right,
brains at all. So forget
right.
them. Imagine you're talking to remotely intelligent people who actually like thinking. What would you say your relationship to Islam is?
Well, you see, like unfortunately, you can't avoid the stupid people
Oh, the
because they
stupid people can
they
watch as well. Who knows? They might
no
benefit,
no
but
no.
like generally, yeah.
I mean that they're the ones that seem to have a monopoly on presenting Islam to the world. And I
Mm,
went through the same thing for a long time. I would read a passage, and it would say, you must treat your wives with respect, and they have every right that you have under Islam. And then in that surah we were talking about before, you know, okay, if you promise that you were going to beat your wife, then just beat her with 100 blades of grass.
mm,
And it just like it didn't make any sense. And it's the same reason that when I was a teenager, I dropped out of Catholicism and Christianity, and
mm,
it just too many contradictions. And I thought, well, this is, this doesn't make sense. This cannot be the word of God. This cannot be, some sort of revealed wisdom, because it's contradictory.
mm,
Um, and the problem is that I think for a lot of people, and I was also very suspicious of Islam. I didn't like the way that it treated women as I saw it. I didn't like
mm,
the way that it dealt with social justice in terms of like crime and punishment. But what I used to read a lot of Christopher Hitchens, and I still
mm,
do. Uh, and he was, he was very, very sort of militant in his opposition to Islam,
mm,
very well expressed, etc. But and then I started to read a different translation,
mm,
and I wondered if myself and other people, Hitchens, other people who criticize Islam, if they've ever actually read uh, the Quran as it was meant to be understood,
mm,
you know. And I think that there is so much misinformation which has been put out by those stupid Muslims that you referred to,
mm,
you know,
mm,
because it's this this thing about, like, it's the status that the people who understand have when they're explaining to somebody else, right? It's
mm,
this, like, and the authority that they gain within their own
mm.
community,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
right? And all of that plays into it. And I've had conversations with, in like Muslim chat groups, and trying to find out, say, like, what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? And they'll direct me to some scholarly interpretation and say,
Sure. So I'm gonna
this
cut
is
you
the last
off.
point.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
cut. Oh, I'm gonna cut you off. I get it. That your relationship is like your, maybe because we've talked as well, so I can summarize. It's kind of like you're reading the Quran for yourself. You don't want people to tell you what the Quran is, um, and you're exploring it in your own way. Is that right? Fair enough. And
yeah,
you
yeah,
practice
yeah.
Islam the way you feel comfortable. That makes, and it might not be the way a lot of other Muslims might practice it, but who cares? Like it's between you and God, right?
Absolutely. And I also had to come back to A belief in God. I mean, for a long time, I was not an atheist. I was like
Yes.
a strong
I'm going to talk
agnostic.
about that. That's going to be that's going to be essential to the thing I'm going to talk about, because somebody asked me to talk about nihilism, and I think that's pretty crucial. So we talk a little bit about nihilism as well. Cool. So for those who don't know what I do happiness classes based on Islamic principles. And when I say happiness classes, I'm talking about from personal to global issues, including the environment and relationships and inner peace and the whole lot. And I've got a whole course. And today we're only on lesson 2. I've actually been jumping around and not following the order, but the first lesson is finding a direction. When I say finding a direction, I do want to make it clear. I try to give scientific, psychological evidence as to why XYZ makes sense, whatever I'm offering. It's not like, oh, this is Islam, you've got to believe it because I said so, because that's not very helpful. In fact, my target audience are generally not Muslims, or maybe new converts or people exploring and stuff like that. But it is Westerners. There's a reason for that. I'll briefly say, according to my understanding, we're in the latter, I don't want to say how many thousand years, whatever, and God promised that the sun, as it were, would rise from the west. There's a prophecy, essentially meaning that it will be the Westerners who will pick up Islam as if it was their own, and they would really promote Islam because they really understood it, because they really questioned it from the beginning. And that's my understanding. But anyway, that's one of the reasons why I'm targeting it, and it seems to be the truth. There are lots of lovely Arabs here as well. I don't want to just say like blanket statements, but I think the understanding is very low. So anyway, let's just get into it. I'm going to try to. So I have written material for each lesson. In the description is kind of lots of detail, which we probably won't go through. I don't even know if any of that stuff is viewable on your screen. Is it hard to see? Is it really hard to see the thing I've shared on the screen? Probably. It's
No, no,
probably a
no, no.
mess.
If I,
Yeah.
no, it's
I'll make
okay.
it like
Yeah, that's better.
cool. And so I'm not gonna read through this kind of stuff. I'm just gonna this is like a initial paragraph that summarizes a lot of the ideas, but there's a ton of stuff which we probably won't go through. But I will focus on what's important to you. That's whoever I'm talking to in the stream, I focus on them, and everybody else hopefully benefit as well. And if somebody wants to say something in chat, I'll try to weave in what they're seeing as well. Anyway, so let me put it this way. I've got something highlighted. I'm not sure if I'm going to say all of it, but it's something like this. Reality. I was listening to something earlier on and I was inspired by it, and I like it the way some sheikh or whatever, some convert sheikh was saying. It's like, have you ever watched The Matrix, Adam?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have
So there's
several times.
the red pill, the green. Oh no, sorry, the red pill, the blue pill. I think red pill is reality, blue is not reality. And this little discussion is going to be about understanding reality, because there are a lot of hidden walls that we bump into to make our lives difficult. And this sheikh was saying, we've got a green pill people. So people might have green pill. What's that like? Okay, so green. So Islam is supposed to be based on nature. Green is supposed to
Yeah,
be the color of nature. And this sheikh, I can't remember his name, some convert guy from England, was like, we got a green pill people. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. I think there's a sense of like, if you understood reality better, just accept, like, if you understood based on psychology and things like that, and it's actually not that hard. Like, psychologists have been saying the same thing about God and whatever being actually really important to your happiness. Atheist psychologists have been saying it frustratingly. They've literally frustrated that they have to accept that God is really important part of being happy. And there's lots of evidence you can see in the West as we become godless, as it were, people become really quite miserable. I was an atheist for a while. I was pretty miserable then. So that's kind of the nature of this discussion. And I'll just say two things that are essential, and then we'll kind of talk about it more. Essentially, the thing we need most is God, and I'll talk about why and how we know that, how we can prove that. Um, and everything else is a distraction, not even a distraction. That's not even putting it strongly enough. It's when people chase the other stuff, and I'm not talking about like eating food, like that doesn't make you happy. That just keeps you alive, right? I'm saying all the other stuff, like being important, getting lots of likes on YouTube, or I don't know, um, all the usual stuff, right? It will never make you happy. And essentially, all I'm saying is the reason why people find happiness so hard is because they're running in the wrong direction. If you just walked peacefully, calmly in the other direction, you'll suddenly find you'll be happy every day very quickly. Um, Maybe if you put yourself through tons of trauma, like I remember when I was depressed, it took a little bit of time to get back out of it because I harmed myself mentally so much that it's like, yeah, it takes a little bit of effort, but I think quite quickly you can get out of a lot of problems that we suffer from because we're not suffering from dying of hunger in the West. We're dying or literally dying. Do you know, by the way, the most common way young people die is suicide in the West?
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty terrible for people who know what's happening. So, yeah, those are some initial thoughts. Like, there's the right direction, God. We can talk about how we know that. And there's the wrong direction, which is everything else, which is chasing illusion after illusion. And I'm going to jump into some verses of the Quran, but I like to keep this a conversation, not a monologue. So, just any initial thoughts, Adam?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've kind of gone through that whole atheists are unhappy. The argument that God is the important part to making you happy, right? And that without God you cannot be happy. And I'm still working on that one because I don't feel I don't feel happier now that I have accepted that God exists. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel any happier than I did when I used to question God. And when
Mm.
I didn't deny God's existence because you can't do, I mean, you can't prove a negative, right? So and there's no proof that something does not exist.
I mean, I
Um,
can I can prove God exists quite very simply and clearly mathematically. But anyway, we'll get to
uh,
that. Yeah.
okay. But then again, it's like if you can prove that God exists, then belief from as I understood it, belief would become redundant because you would just have the proof, right?
There would be there basically. I think God makes things really simple, but there's always scope for you to disbelieve somehow because you literally haven't like God will make it really obvious that He does exist, but you won't see His face, so you have got the opportunity to ignore all the facts that are in front of you. Is what I'm gonna offer some facts and stuff like that. Yeah, so let me delve a little bit into
Sure.
this thing about basically I want to ask you a little bit about your relationship or do you have any sort of feeling or experience of God, or is it just a theoretical thing?
Um, no, I mean what I my own experience of God comes through what I've read about in the Quran. Okay, so and I know people will say that that's like a circular argument. Okay, but the my previous attitude that if you can have proof, then you don't need belief is redundant.
Hmm.
I kind of went out the window because what I was operating under was like the contradictions within the Bible, okay, within the
Hmm.
New Testament, between like the accounts of say Jesus' crucifixion and what happened afterwards, and different eyewitnesses saying different things, and so and then I came across the Quran, and I came up with this idea that the Quran is complete and it does not contradict itself.
Hmm.
and the way in which it has been delivered, right? Just things like the number of words, the number of verses, the number of chapters, for want of a better word, it all fits together. And if you alter something, then this whole sort of unity completely disintegrates. And also the fact that the challenge is there to, right, fine, produce a verse like this, okay, and maybe somebody can use Chat GPT now to do that, but I don't think that is going to capture this the I don't know, this like this the essence of what is being shared with us.
Did you find? So, are you saying maybe that you mentioned the verse numbers and all that kind of stuff? Like, are you saying there's all this numerical perfection or something that made you think, oh, maybe this is the word of God? I haven't fully understood what you're trying to say about it, about the Quran, that drew you to it.
The first thing I read was the opening surah, the Fatiha, and it was it was like everything is inside there. Right? And then I read a few more. I managed to get over the Baqarah, the cow. I managed to get over that, and that was a long one. But then I started I constantly saw these references to the idea that this is easy to understand. This is straightforward. This is complete. There is nothing missing. And then I looked at like how I should pray, and I looked at how I should treat people, and the consistency of it. Right, it's just this constant thread of consistency throughout, and the way in which it's that yes, there is repetition, but the repetition comes down. It's distilling everything down to some very, very basic statements. That you must treat people properly, fairly, and that you must.
So I'm going to keep cutting you off.
Yeah,
that's my thing. Okay, because I know like the audience are like, my target audience in my mind are like, they want to focus on so we get the idea that there's something about it, some perfection, some beauty that attracted to it, it made sense, fantastic. Okay, the reason I'm asking this is because so your experience of God is going to be central to your inner peace, right? This is the claim I'm going to make, and I'm going to start throwing in some. Let's throw in at least a verse of the Quran and then some science very quickly. So I'm going to skip that one. Where's the one I'm looking for? Okay, scroll to the side. And will it read the whole thing? Maybe I'll zoom out a little bit or stretch this one second. Maybe that's better. Okay, I think that's all showing. Okay, so I always include Bismillah, the first verse, as the first verse. A lot of the Muslim world, for some reason, don't think the first verse is the first person, even though they think it's perfect. The Quran is perfect. It's a very odd way of thinking. So anyway, so some people might have to take away one from these numberings. But anyway, Quran chapter 13, verse 29. Most definitely it is in the remembrance of God that hearts can find comfort. Okay, this is a claim. And interestingly, there's a lot of evidence to prove that, right? So there's some maybe indirect evidence. Let me throw one out there. Did you know that standing in nature is more peaceful? This is a scientific thing, not a religious thing. It can reduce your depression more than any pharmaceutical drug. Ever heard of something like that?
Yeah, it's this idea of grounding yourself, right? So take off your shoes and your socks, and then stand. Right? It's the way.
But what do you think it is? The nature? Why
negative energy?
Okay, so they didn't say you take your shoes off, right? But I would recommend that. I've kind of experienced that kind of stuff, right? But this is just said be in nature, and there's so many studies of all kinds, just touching the ground, doing gardening, being close to nature, very powerful. my weird little question is, what is like if you had just a leaf? What's so good about a leaf? Why would that affect you? I mean, I'll suggest I'll suggest an idea quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read this verse of the Quran. I think it's beautiful, but often it's taken what's the word, literally, and then it's just ruined. And it's basically about a conversation between God, Sheba and who's that king who married her or something?
Solomon.
Yeah. And he says, it is a palace paved with glass. And he was trying to demonstrate an idea. I mean, have you ever heard of that verse? Like talking about,
No.
yeah. Okay, so I understand it as referring to the nature of the universe, right? That under which there's rushing water, and the rushing water is signifying the power of God, but we see apparently the universe, but behind it is a great power, and we what's the word, we incorrectly put that or pin that power on the planets and all this kind of stuff, but really the power is what's behind. Essentially, what I'm saying is when you look at nature, when you look at a leaf, which is pretty ordinary, just stuff, okay, there's something behind it that we have an inherent attraction to. We have an inherent attraction to God. So you're saying, of course, you just said that since you started believing in God, you don't necessarily find more peace. But it does seem that there's let's call it a mystical relationship we have with nature. And I think even like you don't have to agree, but I think sometimes I think we put a lot of boundaries between us and God, even if we academically believe in God. And the more like these simple kind of discussions we have, the more we go, you know what, maybe I'm putting up a boundary between me and God in terms of feeling God in my bones. I suppose the question, let me start with the question. What do you think is the mystical relationship between us and nature that makes us feel more peaceful in nature?
Well, there's that line in the poem that talks about you can hold eternity in a grain of sand,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, you see a leaf, and a leaf has fragility to it.
Yeah.
But there is also, unless you go and rip it up, crush it, whatever, it will function, continue to do exactly what it's supposed to do for as long as it's supposed to do it. And then when autumn comes, the tree will draw in its water, and the leaf will turn brown and fall off, and then life will still stay within. So it's life hasn't gone anywhere. It's just moved on to another.
But why do we find peace looking at stuff? Why don't we find peace looking at a block of concrete?
We don't find peace looking at stuff. I think, if you're in a crowded apartment, you don't find the peace. You're constantly, there's too much visual stimulation, right? Because the stuff that you're looking at, that is stuff. The stuff that you're looking at is man-made. It's artificial. And even if you see like a Trompe l'oeil, like the art that tricks the eye and looks real, it's not real. And there's something that we as humans, we understand fundamentally the difference between the real and the.
So what's special about a leaf compared to the other stuff, the man-made stuff? What is special about the leaf? So objectively, what we're saying, when I say objectively, they've done experiments, being in nature. I call it giving you more peace. They call it being less depressed. I think they're one and the same, whatever we want to call it. What's that? What's going on there? Try to put it in one or two sentences. See if you can. If you can.
It's because you're surrounded by life, right? And everything else that we have
But
we
why
have
would that?
made.
Okay, great. I like that answer, but why would that give you any peace? Life.
Because it connects you with this the all of the life around you. Okay, and at some level, I think your brain understands that at an atomic level, there is no real distinction between you and the leaf. There's no real distinction between you and the tree, you and the grass, you and the particles of air, the dandelion that's flying through the air, right? Because the breeze blew it.
Mm,
There's no real difference between those things.
mm,
And that we are all part of this massive organism that has been, if you accept God, that has been created by God, right?
So, at what level, what kind? I don't. I'm going to kind of explore a few different things, but because God is so essential for finding that peace, and maybe you can realize that. Like, if you look at, I don't know, the Palestinians. That's a kind of interesting example now. Like, people, they're still smiling. They're probably like they seem to be more happier than Londoners, and I mean, it's not a very nice thing to say, I suppose. But like, despite people dying and whatever, they have a relative peace that Londoners, I say Londoners. Are you not really much a Londoner? Are you, did you live? I don't. Whatever. I kind of. You sound like one, right? My point is that Londoners are a miserable bunch. That's my opinion, anyway. Especially when they're on their way to work in a crowded tube train, whatever you call it. And there's something really powerful. I mean, psychologists have known this. There's something very powerful. Viktor Frankl, ever heard of that guy? Psychologist.
Yeah.
So he said basically meaning is essential for happiness and God is the super meaning. And also there's also sort of like ideas like this. For some reason and I could even go into biology, like the dopamine system seems to want you to there's two ways you find joy through dopamine highs, let's call it. One is like achieving a goal or eating something, but there's the other one which is like the long lasting one, which is working towards a meaningful goal. A meaningful. It's really strange. And for me, you might say, what's that got to do with God? Because connection with God from the religious understanding is by doing good things, like meaningful things, becoming a better person, and then you become more connected with God. So in all sorts of strange ways, I think there's all sorts of evidence to say that God is kind of essential to happiness. Let me ask you, so suppose my little kind of bit more, okay, can you tell me, okay, in a straightforward way, maybe, is your understanding of God purely academic, or is there any sort of emotional connection or experience at all?
No,
You can give
I
me a
mean
really
it's not.
short answer.
No, it's not academic. I mean, there have been a couple of moments that I don't really want to talk about. They're very personal. I'm still working them out in my head, but
Yeah.
I do know when I pray, which isn't every day, and it isn't 3 times a day, but it's
Sure.
regularly enough.
Yeah.
That there are moments when I'm completely calm, completely centered, completely focused, and I do feel like I'm being embraced.
Cool. And do you find that the more you, I like to say give up, like give up trying to be in control, trying to be special, trying to be anything. And the more closer word maybe would be to submit, which is what Islam is.
Mm-hmm.
Islam essentially
Mm-hmm.
has these two kind of dual meanings. One is you find peace, and the other meaning is to submit to essentially to the will of God. And I think that the submit is the recipe to finding the peace. So the more you let go, the less you try to feel like when you pray, you just like stop, think, try. I mean, I'm terrible at this, right, by the way, but I always keep trying my best. Just let go of my worldly plans, all my conniving, like to achieve all these different things. Like just let go and just think God, and like just have like a pure thought of God just for a minute and see what happens. Like I used to like have a mantra and it used to work magic. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, Subhanallah lazim, which means holy is my Lord. Holy, I think the word holy means like really pure, like just perfectly pure, like no bad, what's the word, like no evil, whatever. Holy is my Lord the most high, holy is my Lord the most great. Oh yeah. And just that just contemplating on that a few times would give me a lot of peace. So I suppose my question is, do you feel, have you tried, okay, when you find that sort of peace sometimes when praying, is it possible that it is when you let go?
Yeah, I think it is like a letting go. For me, it's it takes me a while to get there, and it doesn't always happen. But I think it depends on how open I'm being, and how honest I'm being with myself. Yeah, I think God always listens and God always hears us, but I don't always feel that God is saying to me, like, I don't think God is talking to me, but that God, but I don't feel it always as if God is saying, yes, I am here right now with you. I believe that God is there.
I think it's really important to accept that we're terrible in our own special ways. I'm like always looking at myself like, oh my God, I've been a Muslim my whole life and I can't even concentrate 100% on prayers. Like now I'm thinking about that and I'm doing this and I'm just like, let's start off with, we're both totally rubbish. Nobody's trying to be perfect. Okay, now if we can get some peace, that's fantastic. If we can pray a little bit properly, that's fantastic. That's kind of like where I'm working at. There's a verse of the Holy Quran I'm going to jump into a tiny bit before I try all the other cool stuff that I want to talk about really quickly, right? But there was a verse of the Holy Quran. Maybe I don't like butchering the Quran in terms of like reading it really badly. So I'll try to quickly get it out. When my servant asks about me, which is so beautiful, I just don't want to butcher it. I'm just quickly searching on a Quran, digital Quran. When my servant asks about me, say I am near. Let me see if it comes up. Let's see how good the search is. Come on, be good. Could be good. Okay. And when my servant, this is chapter 287, verse 187. And when my servant asks you about me, say I am near. I answer the prayer of the person who prays to me. So they should come to me and believe in me, that they may follow the right way. There's, I suppose, a challenge of sorts. It's like, I'm here. I'm real. I'm not just academic. I'm not just a proof. You know, I haven't even done given the mathematical proof, but whatever. Maybe we'll talk about that in a bit. But there's like, you can see. I'll basically, I will answer your prayer, right? And I didn't always have that. Yeah, I've had lots of really crazy experiences. Then after a while, I was like, yeah, definitely God exists. I'll stop being difficult about it. I suppose my question therefore is, I really thought there were like I've had some very weird relationships with God, like being very angry. Let's be quite frank. I used to swear at God all the time. It's a terrible thing to say. That was a phase. Like God, why are you making my life so difficult? And then eventually got out of that phase. But anyway, I suppose the question is, just to end this little section, is does it make any sense? This feels like that saying of Prophet Muhammad that goes along the lines of, you take one step towards God, God will take 10 steps towards you. And I suppose I want to kind of flesh it out a little bit, this question. The one step means, as the verse of the Holy Quran, I probably should have shared the screen, but whatever. But this verse I just read begins with, when my servant asks you about me. So this is not you like, hey God, woo, you like whistle to God. You know, you have to be the servant first to some extent, even if it's one step. Have you ever tried this kind of formula of, I'm gonna, God, what do you want me to do? And maybe you get some inspiration of some sort. Maybe it's like, be a nicer dad or something, just one step better, and then see what happens. I don't know. You don't have to say yes, it does. I'm just intrigued. Hopefully, you have loads of these conversations in the future. But do you feel like there's one step towards God, and God takes maybe more steps towards you or something? When you let go, it's not simply being in charge, but actually listening to whatever God wants you to do. Does that somehow bring you closer?
Yeah, I think that it's this idea that if you leap, then you will be caught. Okay. That there's this fantastic poem by a guy called Guillaume Apollinaire, the French poet. Come to the edge, he said, we're scared, they said. Come to the edge, he said, we're scared, they said. Come to the edge, he said, they came, he pushed them, and they flew. So, right,
very true.
You know, if you do nothing, even if you fall, you're only going to fall on the floor.
Yeah, that's true. I love that. So I'm going to translate some of that. Can I translate some? Basically, like, the reason why people don't submit to God is because it's so scary. It feels like you're going to die. That's why it's called being born again in different religions. But you're not really going to die, like you said. You won't actually die if you give up some money or whatever. You probably won't die. But it feels like it because you're so attached to certain things like self-importance and being, all sorts of weird things that we get attached to, but we don't realize they're weird because we think they're essential to life or something. So am I translating that fairly well?
Well,
you add more to it.
Yeah. No, I think it's that
Uh-oh, hope his connection didn't die. Is he still there? He's still there. Okay, so hopefully his connection will come back. Maybe you can even hear me. Sometimes happens like that. I'm going to jump into a verse of the Quran answering this question about why is being happy so hard. It's not actually hard. It's just like if you're running in the wrong direction, you're not going to go to the right place. And so there's this verse of the Quran. I'll read it and then I'll explain it a little bit. He's gone. Hopefully he'll come back in a minute. And as to those who disbelieve, and disbelieve means hiding from the light of God, like actively hiding from the light of God. Okay, there's some verses from the Quran before which talks about the light of God. God is the light of the heavens and the earth. Really beautiful verse. Anyway, and as to those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until when he comes up to it, he finds it to be nothing. There's a bit more to it from other interesting things. Essentially, it's saying, like, when you disbelieve, when you run away from God, what are you going to run towards? You're going to run towards iPhones. You're going to run towards having, I don't know, lots of sex with lots of different people or something like that. Not that sex or eating food or whatever is a bad thing, but like as a sort of way to, okay, ooh, is he there? What am I getting? Oh, is he back? He's back. I bet he's back, and I haven't added him back in. Yes, sorry. Cool. Hey, Kurt. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's cool. Who cares? Who cares? Cutscene comes back. God's running. God will make the best of this show, whatever it is. I'm very not concerned. Anyway, so I read out this verse. I'm going to read it really quickly. So I'm going to jump into a couple of very interesting ideas in the last 15 minutes, super fast. Let's see. So you've seen this verse of the Quran, which is, and as to those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until when he comes up to it, he finds it to be nothing. Do you remember we talking about this verse? I think.
Yep. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, it's essentially saying if you're running in the other direction, all the other stuff is not going to make you happy. It looks like it's going to make you happy. It's like a mirage. What's a mirage? It looks like it's going to make you happy from the distance, but when you arrive there, when you get it, you go, wasn't so good. Maybe you get the initial high of achieving your dream, and then it's like, not that good, you know? And that's why, in short, being happy seems so hard, because if you're running in the wrong direction, how are you going to get to the right place, essentially? What do you think about that?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you you have to run in the right direction to get to the right to get to the destination, the right destination. And we are. I mean, I'm listening to some of the other stuff you've been saying. We are distracted by mirages. You know, we're distracted by things that appear to have substance and value, and they are tangible things, right? You know, my new phone, my new pair of shoes, the woman that's looking at me, and well, that's nice, someone's looking at me, right? So yeah, you do get attracted to those things, but the moment that you chase after them, you come and you find that they are never going to give you what you want. Okay, because that's a real woman, and this is a real iPhone, and that's a real coffee cup. That's not my point. That what you actually need is not something without. It's not something outside of you. It's something inside of you. Okay, and the inside of you is that connection that you need to make with the very core of who you are, which is, as I accept now, is God. Right? That the closer you get to understanding who you are, the closer you get to a fulfilling relationship with God.
Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. The reality of the world, reality of us, what really makes us happy. If we understood that, then it'd become easy. Now, the other thing I want to throw in, and like I know we've discussed that I don't know, I don't want to get into overly theological whatever ideas. It's like you don't necessarily follow hadith, sayings of Prophet Muhammad. I don't think, like, you quoted one in a class that we were in, so it's not like, I don't think you're essentially against them. I don't know, but all I'm going to say without getting into the discussion is, like, wherever you find wisdom, great, isn't it? Like, who cares where it's from? Let's just put it that way. What do you think? As long as it makes sense and it's useful, right? To begin with. Oh, is he still there? Connection died. Oh, maybe you'll have to jump in and out a million times, Adam, for some sort of reset thing. And in between, people can be contemplating, does that make sense? That anyway, so I'm going to read this thing that helps me snap me out of this hoarding mentality, essentially covetousness. So I think it's jumped out, and he'll be jumping in again. Oh, okay, you're in twice. Cool. Do you mind your face being on it? You can turn your camera if you like. It's up to you. You're about to be on screen. Ready, steady. Cool. Yeah, cool.
I'm in twice. Yeah.
Your camera's off. Cool. Here we go. So this is my way of escaping being attached to things too much. one of my ways, which absolutely is one of my favorites. So be in this world, Prophet Muhammad said, as if you're a stranger or a traveler. The example of this world and me myself is that of a rider who seeks shade under a tree, then he moves on and leaves it behind. There's a couple of all these kind of ideas in this imagery that really attracts me. So as a traveler, okay, if I had to see two people on a beach, and the person without shoes on a beach with ripped up shorts, or a man with a suit, shiny shoes, whatever, I'll feel sorry for the man in suits. And in fact, I generally feel sorry for people in suits, even if they have lots of money, wearing a tight tie around their neck and stuff like that. My idea is that it's not it's kind of try to experience, though, if you think you're going to be here for a very short amount of time, then that awareness lets you soak up life. And if you're too attached to grabbing things, you're never really experiencing life. You're just hoarding, collecting, fearful that you never feel you have enough. That's one idea. But I want to, before I carry on talking, I love the thing about resting under a tree. It kind of adds to this thing about trying to get too comfortable. Like resting on a tree is not comfortable, but at least you get to see the scenes. You get to smell the roses before it's too late. So these kind of ideas, like, do you know, I mean, do you ever go on holiday and then you notice all these tiny things and you're excited about tiny things, like, oh, look at the coffee, look at the cups, look how they smile, do you ever do that in holidays?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
And isn't there something about the transitory or short time that you're experiencing it that makes you appreciate those little things? Maybe, I don't know.
I agree. I mean, this moment will never come back to me.
So, I mean, do you think if you're on holiday and you were too interested in making videos to show other people and collecting stuff, that you might miss the experience of the holiday?
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, I do.
So that's what I'm kind of getting at. Like, when people spend their whole life, most people, this is 99.9% of people I talk to, right? They just feel like they're never happy. And even if they got loads of money, and it's because they say we haven't quite become successful. And to become successful, we need to be really comfortable. And comfortable is really bad. Like, I'm in Jordan and I feel people are a lot happier because they're so much closer. This sounds rough and I could probably say it a bit better, but they're so much closer to death. They're like risky people, the way they drive. Everything is just dangerous. They've got pots hanging on the edge of places they shouldn't be, and fires in wrong places. And I don't know, but I think I'll put it like this: the more closer you are, the more closer you live to death, or closer you are to death, the more alive you are. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's it's, well, what is it? This I don't know which one it is. You know, the Lord of the Rings, right? The guys are sitting in the Ents. The two hobbits are sitting in the Ents, and he's trying to persuade him to go to Isengard. And he says, "Oh, the closer you are to danger, the further you are from harm."
Interesting. Maybe right? that as well. Okay, yeah.
That what? No, I mean the sort of the chaos that you're referring to. It's only chaos from like somebody who doesn't live there, from their perspective, right? If you're brought up in that, you understand the rhythms You understand that the bus isn't going to stop for the light, right? You understand that the guy isn't going to indicate to turn left or right. You
Oh yeah,
understand
it's
that, you get it. So
what I. But I want
you
to. The
modify your
thing that
behavior as a result.
sure, that's that. But the thing I want to dissuade my Western viewers from, the thing that really kills the experience of life, is trying to be comfortable, because you'll never be comfortable. In fact, you become weaker and weaker. The more money you spend in trying to bubble wrap yourself, whatever the phrase is, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
The weaker and fragile you become. Westerners are so fragile, I promise you. It's so embarrassing. Oh, he looked at me the wrong way. He said this, he smelled this, he did that, and blah blah. I don't even notice these things. I'm out with people like, nobody, what are you gonna do to me? You're gonna look at me the wrong way, say the wrong thing. God is my power, right? You can't,
Hmm.
nothing's good. I've been I'll give you, like, I've been in trouble so many times in jobs. That's why I don't really have normal jobs anymore. Like, I'll give you a really quick example. Like, I got fired once. I say I got fired. I don't know. They give different terms, right? I actually told half the school I got fired and made a big fuss of it. It was really quite funny. Um, and then the school got upset because it was quite embarrassing for them. But anyway, I'm always causing a lot of trauma. But the real story is, I was chilling out on my last day at the school, enjoying lunch, and I was smiling and enjoying myself. And this kid comes up to me. It's like, because I told, she was in one of my classes, and I think, like, 13-year-old or something. She's like, "Why are you so happy? Like, you just got fired." It's like, because I did the right thing. Cool.
Hmm.
I'm relaxed. Do you know what I mean? And most people will be crying, miserable, whatever. They wouldn't want to do any fraction of what I do. Like, I I go do crazy things all the time. Most people can't even do 1,000th of what I normally do, right? And I don't feel it at all. It's because what's the word? I don't know. Because I'm not concerned or attached to too many things, I suppose. I don't know. What do you feel about that? It's like this idea of, yeah, just whatever you want to say.
Um, yeah, yeah. Look, you don't risk losing anything if you're not attached to anything, and so that gives you a completely different sense of your own responsibilities and your own fragility and your own mortality,
Hmm.
because you can't lose anything. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but I travel, and I travel with a backpack.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't have check-in. I don't have a trolley little case
Hmm.
behind me. I don't need any of those things. And
And you become more free.
yeah, yeah, because you constantly pack everything up in 5 minutes and you can go off somewhere else. And if you want to go and explore, then you already have your backpack with you. You're already out. You can, the hotel's back there. If you really want to go back, you got a place to stay, right? But you've got an entire world, an entire city. You can just go and see it. And the worst thing that's going to happen to you is that you get lost. And I found that people are very friendly and people will help you out if that happens. Nothing.
One of my best experiences just getting lost in places like Morocco and wherever, and then you
Yeah,
talk to people, anyhow, unexpected experiences. Very, very cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you open yourself up to it, and we were made to live in this world. I think we forget that. That we're not an alien species that's landed on this planet. We have come from this world. We've
Mm,
been we are part of this world, as I said before. You know,
mm.
our carbon-based life forms, like everything else around us, right?
I'm gonna tell to wind this thing up. Just a thought. Tell me a recent experience that gave you some joy. Just, and I'm going to share one, and then I'm going to comment on anything that similarities. Just something. And when this is the thing I often say: try not to filter. What I mean by that is try to just say the first thing that comes to mind. even if it sounds really dumb and small.
I was riding my friend's scooter tonight before I came, and the battery didn't die out, and so I didn't have to push it back to the apartment. That gave me joy and happiness, and
Cool. So you
I didn't
risked
get
it.
run over. I didn't get run over.
Cool. I can in Jordan, I can appreciate not getting run over. It's very funny experience where I am. Like you don't, the cars will never stop until you get in the way. So your job is to get in the way of the cars. The normal way of it's very funny experience for a Londoner. But anyway, so and actually that's kind of quite an enjoyable experience, kind of just crossing roads. My little enjoyable experience just now, I just went to the shops, just going shopping. It's not the shopping itself, it's the smiles and the helpfulness of the Arabs here. I just made a video. You could, if you want to, just look at the smiles, and like they're just generous. It's like, oh, I don't know about this or that, and they'll just go 100% out of their way. They get past their counter, and that's it. Like, that's my thing. And so this is what I'm going to wind up with. It's the little things. I think in the West, we've been attached to really big things, the little things that make us happy. And we know it's the little things because when I say little things, it's a simple way of saying subtle things. What is spirituality? It's this thing that's just not physical. And it's so subtle, but it seems so essential. I've had so many people tell me like, oh, like we made tons of money. And then we got achieved all our goals, and we got really depressed, and then we found out it's something else, again, experience of God or something like that. Like Alcoholics Anonymous, essential part of that. I don't know if you've ever heard of the I keep forgetting, it's 12 steps. I think it's 12 steps, and giving up it's just like Islam essentially, like giving up your will to a higher power is, I think, the way they put it. And that only that higher power is going to solve it, and you're not going to solve your problems, which is really intriguing. Yeah. So the little things, God, yeah, let go. You're not going to be here forever. Appreciate the little time. It's depressing when you think every day is going to be the same and you're going to keep repeating it. But if you think this could be a last day, and you just say, what am I going to do to make not the best of it, but what am I going to I know I'm monologuing here, but I just watched a video and talking about like death and something. Like, if you know that all you have to, if you know you're going to meet God, and this could be your last day, then all you're going to do is you're not going to be caring about success in the stupid ways that most of us think of success is. I'm going to have a massive house. You're just going to say, I'm going to meet God. What am I going to do about it? What I'm going to do is be nice to the next person. You live like that every day. That little stuff is going to make you happy. Any last few thoughts? And then I'll let you say the last few words, but make it short. Oh, he's not even here. I was monologuing. Oh, no. Anyway, Adam, wherever you are, maybe I'll chat to you in a bit. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully somebody benefited from it. I didn't even check the comments. I was on the wrong tab, but there were no comments. Fantastic. Must be really good. All right. Because there seems to be an inverse relationship between how good the video and useful the video is and the amount of attention it gets. But anyway, but not always. Thank you, Adam, wherever you are. And thank you, anybody, for listening. I really hope you benefit from me. Always ask questions if you want in the non-live comments. Peace be upon you. Have a great week.